So much of what I'll be presenting tonight represents the work of the Friends of the Ski Mountain Mining History, and that's a committee of the Park City Museum. But I want to be clear that there are a number of other organizations also working to preserve what's left of the remaining structures of the past mining boom days around Park City. In addition, many have worked to preserve buildings in Old Town and other features of the past mining boom days. I mean, Park City is here because of mining. And so all these old buildings in Old Town are also related to mining. So thank you to the folks who are working to preserve those. But it all does work together. And so let's get started. And I'll appreciate you holding your questions until after I finish the presentation. So a little bit of mining history basics for Park City. Why do we care about mining history? Well, Park City was created by mining. There would be no reason for Park City to exist if it hadn't been for mining. There were 110 years of active mining from 1872 to 1982. And at one point, it was the most important mining district in the whole state. With 121 operating mines, 34 producing shafts, 6 major drainage tunnels, 4 of them are still operating, and 16.7 million tons of ore mined, producing 1.45 million ounces of gold, worth today $6.7 billion, 253 million ounces of silver, 129 million pounds of copper, and 4.2 billion with a B pounds of lead and zinc. And the total current value of all that metal production was over $33 billion today. And it's hard to get your arms around 4.2 billion pounds of anything, much less metal. But I've got that figured out. I know how to describe that. So somebody remind me at the end of the talk, and I'll explain that to you. So the mining history of Park City is already quite valued by the community. The Park City Municipal Community Vision Statement includes protecting the rich history of place, character, and heritage while allowing economic development that complements it. The Park City Chamber of Commerce says, we foresee a future where authenticity reigns, where we celebrate our mining and railroad history. Ski Utah says, unlock the secrets of the past and discover Park City's rich mining, skiing, and local history on the Silver to Slopes historic mining tours. And Park City Mountain Resort itself says, Park City is a unique blend of the old and new. Many of the historic mine buildings remain on the ski resort property as remnants of that mining era. So the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History was formed in 2015 as a committee of the Park City Museum. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're supported mainly by private donation and government grants. We're all volunteers with a primary mission of preserving mining structures around Park City and promoting our mining history for our community and, of course, for our visitors. We have strong relationships with landowners, Park City government, the local resorts and hotels, county and state agencies, and others, many others, who are interested in preserving our local mining history. And as Mark said, we're fortunate to work with Clark Martinez and his firm, the Excavation Company, to do our preservation work. Clark is an experienced miner, 4th generation Park City miner. And he has unique experience in dealing with these old mining structures. And so we're very lucky to have him. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about what's been done for the last, 10 years or so in saving the Park City mining structures. Here on the upper left-hand side is the King Kong tram counterweight. And that's up on the Park City Mountain Resort. That was saved in 2016. Cost $41,000. The California Comstock Mill up in Thames Canyon was saved in 2017 for $57,000, and that's up on the Park City Mountain Resort near the Keystone Run. The Little Bell mine ore bin. Is that me? Oh, but I'm going to turn my phone to stun anyway. The Little Bell ore bin was preserved in 2018. $57,000 were spent there, and that's up on the Deer Valley Resort by the Bandana Run. The Silver King water tanks, the Jupiter ore bin rather, was saved in 2018. That was $37,000. The Silver King water tanks were saved in 2020. It was $118,000 spent to preserve those tanks. And then the Thanes mine waste rock conveyor up in Thanes Canyon was saved in 2020, and that was a $231,000 project. And that's up by the Keystone and Jupiter access runs for you skiers and bikers. We have the Judge Mining and Smelting Office. It's the concrete building up next to the Empire Canyon Road in Lower Empire Canyon. And our friends at Empire Pass Master Owners Association led that project. And that was done in 2020, $141,000. The Sparrow Tunnel Boiler House is on Silver Star Drive up near the Sparrow Tunnel. And that was saved by the Silver Star Owners Association. And it was done in 2020, $61,000. The Daily West head frame was saved. It was re-erected in 2022. And it was saved by a group that consisted of the Empire Pass Master Owners Association, Deer Valley Resort, and the city. Working together, it cost $680,000 to put that back up on its legs. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Then we have the King Kong ore bin that's up on Park City Mountain Resort right next to the Claim Jumper Run. That was saved in 2022. It was $125,000. And then the Alliance Mine Watchman's Cabin in Lower Walker and Webster Gulch was saved in 2023, and that was $103,000. All of these structures had serious problems. They were falling over, the roofs were falling in. In the case of the Daily West head frame, it literally had fallen on its side and needed to be rebuilt and then picked up and moved to its current location. So a lot of work went into all of these, and we sure appreciate, quite a few of these are our projects, but we sure appreciate the work done by the others that I've mentioned. Now, much of the work that we do is in kind of remote locations. You can't really drive a concrete truck there any longer. And so much of the work on these smaller projects is done by hand, including all the site cleanup, carpentry, of course, even moving and setting timbers. This left-hand photograph is of an ore bin, and those are new foundation posts underneath it, set into concrete. All that work was done by hand. And then, of course, mixing the concrete for that. And Clark and his folks are experts at using polyurethane foam, which is a very interesting material and creates, you pour it out as a liquid and it foams up and hardens into a very strong structural foam. And so the photograph on the right-hand side shows forms that were built at the Thanes mine closure just this last summer, and they were used to form polyurethane foam blocks that were used to help close that shaft, and I'll talk some more about that. But at our larger projects where we can get heavy equipment there, where it's more accessible, we do. The photograph on the left-hand side is the work we did at the Thanes mine, removing the collapsed roof in 2024 with a crane. The upper center photograph is of the California Comstock mill, where that was re-erected with a crane, lifting those heavy timber sections. That was done in 2017. Lifting the Daily West head frame, you can see it flying through the air there. That was done in 2022. Two of the largest mobile cranes in the state were on that job to lift that head frame weighed 40 tons. and to pick it up where it was lying on its side, it was repaired, lying on its side, to pick it up vertically and then swing it through the air 100 feet to a new location and set it down was an amazing thing to see. And then the lower center photograph there is concrete trucks and a pump truck, and we were pumping concrete from the outside into the Silver King building to do the cap, concrete cap on that shaft. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So our current largest projects are the Silver King Coalition Mine and the Thanes Mine projects. Here is the Silver King Coalition mine complex. This photograph was taken in the 1920s, and it consisted of 3 main boarding houses, bunkhouses, and then a number of smaller ones, 8 all in total, to house the workers. The main mine building here with a tall shaft room that covered the head frame, and the 3 stacks where the boiler room was. A covered tramway so they could move the ore from the mine building around through the woods to the top of the mill building. And of course, the main mill building where they processed the ore. And then, hard to make out, but up in this location is a large coal bin that received the coal coming back up the aerial tram from the mine. And this building here is the sampler building and the upper aerial tram station for an aerial tram that went from this mine clear up over the mountain and then down into Park City. So it was a major industrial endeavor clear back at the turn of the 20th century. The Thanes mine was built in the late 1930s, so they began to sink the shaft in 1937. The hoist house was built then, and so what we see here is a photograph probably taken in the 1940s. I'm dating that because I think that's a 1937 Chevy Coupe, but not sure about that. But that's the hoist house. You can see the head frame in the back. You can see the shaft tower that enclosed the lifting cages and the skips for the head frame. There's 2 big concrete rock bins within that tower. They had a covered conveyor that took the waste rock up to a large waste rock dump nearby, and a number of other smaller buildings. So the Silver King Coalition mine is important. Mining started there in 1892 and continued until about 1953 when mining ceased there, 61 years. It is still the largest group of historic mining buildings left in the Park City Mining District. And it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2024, as have been quite a few buildings in Old Town. It's visible to nearly all visitors who bike or hike up on the Park City Mountain Resort, and its interior still contains some really interesting historic mining equipment and structures, and we'll take a peek at some of that. The whole building is 12,400 square feet in planned size, divided up into multiple rooms, so it's a huge place. As we first found them, there are some really interesting features in the building. This is the shaft room, and you can see this big structure here is the steel head frame that stands over the shaft. That head frame was built in 1902. There is a 2-stage air compressor that was installed in 1934 and a double drum hoist that was installed in 1937. Equipment is all still there. The cool thing about this hoist is these reels are using 6-inch wide flat hoisting cable. And for a modern hoist, that's quite unique, rather unusual. It used to be quite common in the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century, but to have a hoist be working with flat rope, hoist rope as late as 1937, and that operated until 1953, makes it rather unique. There's a large blacksmith shop on the east end of the building that has multiple hearths and belt-driven power equipment. You can see some of the equipment there, and you can see the belt drive equipment here. And really a pretty poor quality floor when we first moved into that area. We'll talk some more about that. The machine shop is a large room that has concrete bases for multiple metalworking machines like lathes and drill presses and so on. And that equipment was originally also operated by shafts and pulleys, and you can see some of that equipment still overhanging the room. The boiler room is on the west side of the building, and it contains one remaining double boiler. And that boiler may date clear back to 1893 when they installed the steam-operated hoist. So here's some photographs of what we were dealing with at the Silver King Coalition Mine Building. These are photos taken of the building before we really started work on it in 2021. It was essentially abandoned. The roof was failing, the windows were broken, most of them covered. The inside was unsafe, and it was a mess. The roof failed because it was never designed to hold snow. Okay. I've lost control of my. There we go. Turn that off. Laser pointer lost made me lose control of my mouse here. I was saying the roof failed because it was never designed to hold the snow. There's no insulation in the building, and so the roof was never insulated. And the building was heated with steam heat the whole time it was operated. So in those 61 years when it was operated, snow did not accumulate on the roof of that building. After 1953, when the building went cold, the snow accumulated. And so what happened is that snow loads weakened and collapsed large areas of the roof. And you can see those exterior photographs, and the one photograph is the inside. More photographs of the inside of the building, full of junk, lots of debris and other waste, and largely vandalized. Many parts of the roof had collapsed, letting in rain and snow that damaged the interior. The shaft was backfilled in the 1990s, but had settled, leaving an unstable crater 17 feet deep, with uncontrolled caving on the sides of the crater. And that endangered the old masonry foundations of the front legs of the headframe. And if they were to slide into that crater, the entire headframe, of course, would collapse. And so we were very concerned about that situation. The building has been a target of vandalism for decades. Almost all of the window panes inside and out were broken. The mine owner covered the ground floor windows with metal sheeting that didn't match, and repaired the broken walls also with mismatched metal sheets. And so the exterior walls were a hodgepodge of different types of metal sheeting. Some of the metal walls were pried open by the vandals, and doors were broken into. The one photograph in the center there is a 2-inch thick, heavy wood door that was broken by vandals clear off the door frame using a battering ram. Graffiti was inside and out, and it was very extensive. Some of the graffiti was outright gross, much of which was cleaned up twice by volunteers working alongside city workers. Now, both the Silver King and the Thanes shafts were caving near the surface, endangering the long-term stability of the headframes, as I mentioned. We could not risk our donors' funds to preserve these buildings until we closed those shafts. to prevent those head frames from falling over. Now, the Utah agency called the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining closes unsafe mine openings all around the state and agreed to work with us to close these 2 shafts. We hired an experienced engineering firm in 2022 to provide the designs and specifications, and then Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining did the bidding, the contractor selection, and contracting in 2023. The Silver King mine shaft was then capped in the fall of 23, and the shaft crater was mostly filled with polyurethane foam, and then crushed rock to provide a level surface, and then 18 inches of double reinforced concrete. And the concrete slab overlaps the sides of the crater onto solid ground to permanently cap and also secure the head frame. So you can see in these photographs, the upper left photograph shows the guys working on the crushed rock, getting it close to the point where they could do the concrete work. The upper right shows the forms ready for the concrete and 2 layers of reinforcing bar. And then the bottom center shows the slab when it was completed. And the shaft itself is much smaller than that big concrete slab, but the concrete slab overlaps the shaft on purpose. A little bit about the roof construction. The thin the original corrugated metal was quite thin, not strong, and it sagged from the snow loads. And then that bent the underlying steel structure, and in some cases broke the underlying steel structure. So we came in and we removed all of the old weathered roof sheeting to expose the damaged roof structure. And then we replaced all the damaged roof structure with new steel and improved several areas where the design of the roof was just not sufficient. And we fixed those areas. And then we riveted strong corrugated steel decking to the roof structure that greatly strengthened it to support the snow in the future. And that decking was bright, shiny, contrasted with the rest of the weathered sheeting on the building. And to finish the work, we reattached the salvaged, rusty, weathered roof sheeting on top of that shiny decking to restore the historic appearance. And so in the upper left here, you see just what we were dealing with once we took that roof off and saw the damage to the underlying structure. The upper right shows that same general area of the building after we've repaired that roof structure and are now applying that shiny, very strong corrugated decking. And then the bottom center photograph shows the crews reattaching on top of the roof now the rusty old metal to make it look like we've never been there. So in contrast, here's what the building looked like before we started working on the roof on the left-hand side. And here's the building going into the fall of 24 after we'd completed the structural work and put the decking on and had not yet restored the roof sheeting. Also note the front wall, the ground floor front wall of the building shows all of that mismatched metal sheeting, and the windows are all covered. So in 2025, we finished the roof repair and we reattached the old roof sheeting on top. We also fixed the exterior walls and opened up all the windows to restore the exterior appearance to the old days of the operations. The collapsed stores building that you see on the left-hand side there in front of the building has already collapsed twice and cannot be reasonably repaired. And so it is scheduled to be removed this coming summer. So you can see in this photograph that the roof is all covered with the rusty corrugated metal again, and you can't even tell that we've done the work to fix that roof. A little bit about the windows. There are 1,384 12 by 18-inch window panes on the exterior windows, and another 255 window panes on the inside windows of the building. Almost every one of them was shattered by the vandals over decades of time. They also had 100-year-old window putty holding that glass shards still in place. So we removed all of the glass and all of the window putty from all of the window panes inside and out that we could safely reach. We left all the window panes open with no glazing to reduce ongoing maintenance, so they're open to the weather. And because they're open, we then installed steel security grids inside the ground floor windows. And the grids are powder coated a rusty brown to match the rusty window frames. And so those grids, although they're brand new, they blend well with the historic look of the windows, and they allow visibility into the building from outside. They let in plenty of light, but they secure the building from vandalism and entry, even though we don't have glazing on them. So these three photographs, you can see what I've been talking about. The upper left shows the windows after we took the covers off, and that's what we were faced with. That was the upper left. The upper right shows the grids being offloaded and ready to be installed, and the lower center shows the windows cleaned out, no glass, and the grids installed within. The blacksmith shop was an interesting thing. The left-hand photograph shows the blacksmith shop before we got started, and half the roof over the blacksmith shop had fallen in, and you can see the mountainside behind it. A lot of earth also came in through that back wall coming down off the mountainside. There's a lot of junk in the building, in the room, and the floor was rotten and dangerous to walk on. The photograph on the right-hand side shows that after we were done, the roof is repaired, the windows have been opened, the grids have been installed behind the windows. The floor all the rotten floor has been removed and replaced with crushed rock. And you say, well, why crushed rock? Well, it's because the building will continue to be open to the weather. And so the crushed rock is a completely maintenance-free floor that is safe to walk on. And we also fixed the two hearths that were damaged. So the blacksmith shop has been materially improved and made safer. Here's a large machine shop in the building. On the left is the machine shop looking towards the west as we found it. You can see the rotten wood floor that was unsafe to walk on. And the dirt that is on top of that floor all came in off the mountainside to the south of the building, eroded off the mountain and washed into that room. So on the right side is the restored machine shop, in this case looking east, with a crushed rock floor, replacing the old wood. We have cleaned all the windows out, installed the grids so the area is well lit, and repaired the roof over that area. And we also fixed the south wall to prevent that earth from coming on into the building. Here's the boiler room. The photograph on the left is the boiler room as we found it. You can see on the left-hand side of the boiler room, that's the west wall, the windows had fallen in and had been destroyed. The window frames are all broken and lying on the floor. On the north end, you can just make out a door that is open, it was broken, and the windows are covered and the door covered with metal sheeting. The photograph on the right-hand side is as we finished it. We repaired the windows on the west wall with new windows. We opened up the windows on the end of the room, fixed the door, and cleaned all the junk out of it. That's how the boiler room looks today. Here's the compressor room. As we found it, it was, the roof had failed over it. There was a lot of debris lying around on the floor. The handrails over the pit were broken and dangerous. The photograph on the right is as we've left it this fall, finished the work in that, fixed the railings, cleaned the room out, and fixed the roof overhead. The hoist room is quite a contrast. As we moved into this project after this last winter, before we had finished fixing the roof, this is what the hoist room looked like. The entire roof had fallen in. A drop ceiling that used to be in the hoist room had also fallen in. There was debris everywhere, and the indicators, those dials that are over the operator's location, were damaged from the roof falling in. The right-hand photograph shows it after we finished our work. The roof is repaired, the room is cleaned up, the windows have been opened up, grids installed behind the windows, and the level indicators have been repaired. So in summary about Silver King Coalition, here's before and afters of the exterior. On the left-hand side, the before, as we were starting our work in 2022, and you can see the damage to the roof and the exterior appearance of the building. It looks pretty abandoned. Since then, we've repaired the roof, we've refurbished the windows and the doors, we've repaired the exterior walls. A security system has been installed. We brought electricity to the building, and there's data that connects the building now to the Bonanza lift station. And so the security cameras that we installed out and inside the Silver King building are now all monitored by the staff of the resort. There's still a few things we need to finish. We plan to complete those in this coming construction season in 2026. And by the time we're done, we expect to have spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.6 million to do this work. Thanes is our next big project. We had planned to plug the shaft, fix the roof, as you can see the roof needed help, and open up the windows and clean the interior. This is what it looked like in the fall of 2022. Really not in bad shape, and actually doing better than the Silver King building. Notable from a mining history standpoint, this was the last shaft begun from the surface in the Park City Mining District in 1937. It was sunk to over 1,700 feet deep over about 2 years with no fatalities or serious injuries, which is a credit to the mining company that did it. Because in the 1930s, a project like this, you would have dozens of serious injuries and fatalities in a project like this. So they did very well. They employed conveyors on the surface to move the waste rock that they lifted in this shaft and then move it out to the waste rock dump. And that alone was pretty unique in the 1930s. No other mine in the United States was doing it. And it's connected underground to the extensive Silver King Coalition mine workings, and it's also connected to the King Kong mine workings, and that connection is via the Spiro Tunnel. The Thane Shaft also played an important part in Park City's skiing history. In 1965, the mining company renovated the Spiro Tunnel and the Thane Shaft to be a ski lift. Skiers loaded onto specially built subway cars at the tunnel portal for a 2.5-mile ride underground to the 1,700-foot depth of the Thane Shaft. And from there, they were lifted to the surface to ski back down the mountain. So this left-hand photograph shows the skiers getting organized at the mouth of the tunnel and getting ready to board the train to go through the tunnel to the shaft. And the right-hand photograph shows happy skiers coming out of the door to the main mine building. I call that door the garage door. And they could be happy because they're going to start their skiing, or they could be happy because they lived through the experience of the underground ski lift. The skier subway operated for just 4 years and closed in 1969. And as far as we know, it's the only underground ski lift like it in the world. So the Thanes mine is historic for both the local mining history and the skiing industry. But in the winter of 22-23, the record snowfall of that winter collapsed the entire roof and damaged the walls of the mine building, and that changed everything for us. The wood frame buildings on the other side of the shaft were crushed and destroyed by the snow load that spring. 12 feet of snow on the roof brought it all down in one event overnight. These are photos of the large shaft room at the mine building and the adjacent change room. The roof was never designed for that extreme snow load. Again, during operations, the building was heated. And so no thermal insulation under the roof resulted in no snow accumulation on any of the roof during operations. So it's a wonder that it held up as long as it did, because this stopped operations in the late 1940s. In 2024, funding provided by the city and the Park City Mountain Resort supported the removal of the collapsed roof over where people could walk. Again, these photographs show the condition of the building, and you can see that that's not a safe place to walk around in. And so that roofing all needed to be removed. So these photos were taken after we removed the roof. We now propose in the upper left-hand photograph, that's the hoist house. And we now propose to straighten those walls, strengthen them, and reinstall a new and stronger roof over the hoist house. Clean out the windows. You can see the windows there are closed up. And also clean the interior. And then secure the building with a camera system that we will install. The center photograph shows looking out the garage door. You remember the photograph of the skiers coming out that door. We're going to preserve that garage door facade because of that photograph that I just showed you of the happy skiers coming out of the building. So this facade will be repaired in honor of that former ski lift operation. Now, the upper right-hand photo is looking at the shaft. You're looking at the base of the shaft tower, and you can see it's now completely open to the weather, and for that matter, unauthorized visitors, because the building has collapsed from in front of it. This is where the skiers got off the shaft, and so that on the right-hand side, there's two cages there, and that right-hand cage painted yellow is the cage that they use to lift the skiers. And so that's really cool, and we want to preserve that. So we will fix the front of that shaft tower and make it available and open so the people who visit can look in and see this same view that you're seeing in this photograph, although we'll protect that area from the weather and from unauthorized entry. The Thanes mine shaft had problems. We knew the shaft was collapsed between the depth of about 55 feet to 105 feet. And this had to be corrected before we could fix the building up at the surface. So we hired an engineering firm to design that plug, and the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining provided the funding and the contract oversight to build that plug. And that construction was done just this last summer. The bottom half of the plug was made of large foam blocks that were lowered into the shaft and then glued together with liquid foam. In that left-hand photograph, you can see the foam blocks that were made on site. The upper half of the plug was made by covering those blocks with a fabric and then pouring in liquid foam that then expanded and hardened into a strong, solid plug. On top of that, a concrete layer was poured to protect the rest of the plug, again, from the weather. The upper 55 feet of the shaft is actually lined with reinforced concrete. We call that the collar. And so it was secure and did not need to be filled. But we did secure the surface. And so you can see in the center photograph how the shaft compartments are now covered and secure grids are put in to keep people out. So we have a lot of work to do still at Thanes. Here's our stabilization actions that we propose. We have already done some roof removal in 24. We plugged the shaft in 25. We need to clean up the demolished buildings, and we're talking to the city and the resort about funding for that. We will repair the hoist house roof and walls. Again, we'll repair the garage door facade. We'll fix the front of the shaft tower. We'll clean the windows, add the security grids, and install power and security systems to the hoist house. Total cost estimate so far is 1.2 million, and we plan to do that work in 2026 and 2027. So a little bit about the fundraising. Although I've been talking mainly about Friends of Ski Mountain Mining history projects, there are multiple other organizations to thank for their efforts to preserve the remaining mining structures around Park City. And they include Vail Resorts, Park City Municipal, of course, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, Deer Valley Resorts, Empire Pass Master Owners Association, Pacific Steel, and Silver Star Homeowners Association. Between Friends of Ski Mountain Mining and those organizations, we estimate $4.2 million has been applied to stabilization of these mining structures since 2016. And what's amazing is that for the 12 projects that have been funded and completed, there are over 600 donors. So there is an awful lot of public interest in doing this work. So as we get close to finishing here, I thought this is a great thing. Tom Clyde, you know Tom Clyde, he's a longtime commenter on all Park City matters. And this is, I think, one of the best descriptions of why we do this preservation work. He wrote this letter to the editor of the Park Record, and it was published May 15, after the May 13 collapse of the Daily West head frame. Let's read it together. One thing that makes Park City unique is the mining history and the fact that much of it is still more or less there. The Daily West is a pile of scrap unless somebody steps in and salvage it. The Silver King buildings, the California Comstock, ore bins, and water tanks are all teetering on the edge. They're very interesting, visually important, and do a lot to define the community and make it unique. They are treasures. Will vacationers quit coming if the Thanes and Bonanza areas are scraped clean of the mine buildings? Probably not. But we lose a big part of our unique heritage if they are demolished through neglect. Those old buildings and the ore bins, water tanks, aerial tram towers, and other stuff scattered about are part of what makes us unique. Somebody apparently believes that more people will spend more money on Main Street because it has granite sidewalks. That's Tom. I've never seen anybody taking pictures of the granite sidewalks. It's hard to remember a day without seeing groups of skiers, hikers, or bikers pausing to take pictures of the Daily West, California Comstock, or Silver King. They are a valued part of our experience. So some final thoughts. Why save these features? Why do this work? Well, first of all, is to mitigate safety hazards. You know, a falling down structure is not a safe place to hang around. Then to enrich our local appreciation, there's a lot of people, yourselves included, who have connections through family or personal experience with the mining industry of this city. And it's important y'all appreciate that history. I think it's fun to surprise our visitors with fascinating and unexpected locations. You know, when people are up on the mountain and they come around a bend on the trail and they see one of these buildings or a head frame or something like that, they're just gobsmacked. What is that? It builds up our reputation for cultural and heritage tourism. Cultural and heritage tourism is a thing. It's an important part of the tourism industry nationwide, where communities have restored and taken care of their history because people from all around the country travel to immerse themselves in that history and to learn about it. And then it puts us on a more equal footing with surrounding states. I ask you, all the states surrounding the state of Utah have one or more outside mining history locations, and some of them are outright museum quality, where they have taken these mining facilities and preserved them and make them available for people to come visit. Where is that in Utah? So it should be Park City. Anyway, thank you for your attention. We're busy with this mission, and I really appreciate your interest in that. Thank you.
May I introduce to you in the back of the room, Donald Roll, my co-chair. Stand up at this, Donald. So Donald and I share the planning of all this, but without somebody like Brian, we would never get anywhere. And without your contributions, I wouldn't be able to do a thing. So thank you, Brian, for all you do. And if we have is due to Brian and Donald. Thanks to them.
I just, all I did was raise the money. I mean, Brian spent it, so we make a pretty good team, but I don't think you can comprehend the complexity of these projects. You're working on 80 to 100 plus year old buildings. And when you start taking them apart to fix them, you find all sorts of surprises. So, Brian has spent countless days up on the site working with our contractor, countless days working with the city on getting approval and permits, et cetera. Countless days with engineering firms designing, the plugs for the shafts, et cetera. And this would not have happened without his type of expertise and the 40 plus years of mining industry experience. So thank you, Brian, for making it happen.
Thank you, Don. Any questions? Yes.
I noticed that one picture, you have the lights to park.
Oh, yes.
So otherwise, it doesn't pick up on the recording.
No?
I noticed on the one picture in the building that you had restored, you left the graffiti on the wall. It was green and there was graffiti still on the wall. Why did you do that?
It's not there anymore.
Oh, just in that picture.
Yeah, some of it is on soft material. We're going to go back in and paint it next year. We're going to spray paint it, but we took care of anything on hard surface we got rid of in the fall. It was a great article in the Park Record, by the way, about the graffiti removal back in September that I highly recommend if you want to learn more about elephant snot, which is a great
product. No, that's true. I think the photographs you were talking about was from the boiler room, and there was graffiti on that right-hand side. And that is it's like a blackboard. And somebody decided that they needed to decorate that blackboard, and they spray painted on it. And so we can't clean that because it'll destroy the blackboard. And so that'll just have to be painted over. Very good. Yes.
You've done a great job
Just an interesting comment. I actually worked for the resort back in 1964 on the Pro Ski Patrol, and we all had to ride the skiers' subway. That was part of working there because we had to promote it to the public. But we didn't ride it very often because it wasn't very pleasant. It took about 45 minutes opposed to the 22 minutes that the gondola took. So yeah, I rode it a couple of times, and it was quite an experience, actually. And one of the reasons they built that is because the only way up the mountain before then was the gondola, which closed frequently because of wind. So they came up with this idea that no wind problems underground.
Any other? Yeah, just slide by here.
Well, no one was going to ask me about 4.2 billion pounds.
Yeah.
All right. So I pondered this 4.2 billion pounds of lead and zinc. How do you get your mind around that? And so I thought, well, I have to convert it into units of measure that Parkites would understand. So I converted it into units of Range Rovers. So the average weight of a Range Rover is 4,800 pounds. And so that works out to 875,000 Range Rovers. So that's not any easier to get your mind around. What is that? So then, sticking with Range Rovers, I said the average length of a Range Rover is 17.25 feet. So 875,000 Range Rovers, bumper to bumper, is 15,093,750 feet. There you go. So then I said, okay, how many miles is that? Well, that's 2,858 miles. Okay, we're getting better. I found that the length of Interstate 80, its entire length from Teaneck, New Jersey on the East Coast to San Francisco on the West Coast, 2,900 miles. So 4.2 billion pounds of lead and zinc is the total weight of 875,000 Range Rovers parked bumper to bumper the entire length of Interstate 80 across the country. Now do you get it? Thank you all. Good night.